Welcome back to the Macro Golf YouTube channel here with Jack. Now, Jack's got an interesting story about speed, and we're talking about speed today. Jack's going to tell us everything he did to gain speed, everything he learned from building speed, and from gaining how many miles per hour we gained on our journey.
Oh, we're talking, I think, 24 miles per hour.
How to gain 24 mile an hour. So hopefully with these tips that he's going to show you today, you're also going to be able to gain 24 mile an hour or more with this stuff. And hopefully you're going to do it in a way that's not going to waste any time or effort or risk getting hurt. And actually is going to be the most way to correlate to lower scoring, right? 100%. So Jack, thanks for coming on the channel. Really appreciate you taking the time. Let the guys know a little bit about your story behind speed training, a little bit of what you do now and what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, of course. So I started speed training, what were we looking at, four years ago, probably, something around there. So it was around sort of COVID time, very much Bryson DeChambeau sort of time. And I was sort of dotting around just under 120 sort of area, which is obviously fairly quick, but I was looking to gain some sort of advantage, trying to get the ball out there as far as I could, as close to the hole as possible, and lower my scores that way. And, you know, through Joe's training plans, through the speed training plans we put together, I was able to sort of push it up to 144, which is what I maxed out in the end. I'm not that now, but I certainly gained a lot at the time, and we sort of learned a lot from it. We learned a lot from how the program was built in the end, and yeah, there was a lot of positives to it. Maybe I took it a touch too far, but it was certainly fun doing it.
Put that into perspective, like distance-wise, what we're talking. So that amount of clubhead speed gaining from going from 120 to 144. What are we talking distance-wise? If you like in terms of on the golf course, what are you talking?
40 yards in the air. 40 yards in the air. Carry. Yeah, cool. was about the game. Yeah,
perfect. So let's go over some ways that you did that. Let's first cover why you did that and what some benefits are, because 100%. We're moving into that time of year now where people are going to start to get attracted to some kind of speed training. Yeah. A lot of people know that there's going to be some benefit. Let's just quickly clarify why this could be useful for some people, why they need to consider gaining some speed.
I mean, it's very rarely harmful. Let's start with that. And a lot of people are scared of it. Scared of the idea that they're going to hit it just wilder, and then that's going to be the reason they start scoring terribly. When in actual fact, if you look at what happens when you get longer and what happens when you start to gain a little bit of distance, you pretty much all the time there's an instant correlation to improving the score, right? If you look at the handicap charts and what happens when you hit it certain yardages, you'll almost definitely see handicaps start to go down as distances start to go up. And that was pretty much my thought process, taking it to another level. Very much, if you look at on the PGA Tour, the longest are pretty much the highest money earners every year. Yeah. And it has been that way for some time.
And I think a key part of that you said there was that distance is the strongest correlator, right? So I think 100%. That's what we're going to talk about here today. We're not talking about all these things you can do to just increase your swing speed, because what's the point of the swing speed if we're not going to get any distance?
Definitely.
We are definitely talking about how we're going to take the swing speed, train for swing speed, but how is that going to relate to ball speed? And therefore, how is that going to relate to actually hitting the ball further, right? Because that's where we're going to get our benefit. So let's talk through some of the stuff you did back in the day, back in those COVID days. What did you do to gain your speed? And then what lessons have you learned? And then maybe we'll show the guys some of the concepts here. So what did you do to gain the speed? What have you learned? And how are we going to take that forward for today?
So I did an awful lot of stuff off the golf course. We were working very hard. I was working hard with Joe and Joe's programming to really push myself in the gym and just constantly trying to improve my strength, my flexibility, my just mobility, making sure I can move and stay injury free, which was crucial in this process. Because I tell you now, you put a lot of hard swings on your body, which is taxing. You could easily injure yourself. So that was a big crucial part for us. And we did that great. We didn't get injured the whole time. So.
Yeah, I suppose we're doing that bit. We're just, you know, maybe, and we've got other videos on like how that training would be done. But what we're trying to do with the strength training, we're just trying to increase your ceiling, right? So we're trying to say how fast could you possibly get, and then the stuff we're going to show today is you actually bridging that gap, right? So that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, and then I mean the sessions were good fun. So the speed training sessions themselves, if you've never done one, which the majority of the people watching this video wouldn't have done. Even the minor ones where you sort of do less golf shots than what I was doing at the time. So I'd probably take it, you know, hour-long sessions with barely any breaks, which is, don't do that to start with. That's not a good idea. But even, you know, sets of 5 balls as hard as you can hit. People have never done that, right? And people have never taken it to those levels. and just training your ceiling there, trying to push it to the highest point it can possibly go, trying to just raise it week by week by week. Those little 2 mile per hour increments make a huge difference, right?
They do. So we've covered a little bit what you did and a bit your journey. Let's talk now for the guys of what they can take away from today of how they can actually start to do some speed training sessions. So you run some sessions here as group sessions. You do some stuff with one-to-one as well. What process do you go through? Let's say, for example, someone hasn't ever done a speed training session. Let's say they've never done any speed training and they're interested this year in using this off season to do some speed training. Where do they start? Where's the safest place to start? And how does that, what does it actually look like? What does a speed training session actually look like? What does speed training actually look like?
So first things first, I would recommend having a good warm-up, like a very well-structured warm-up, not just clipping a couple of balls and getting on with it. Just give yourself every chance of not getting injured. I follow the macro golf warm-up, which is the thing I follow just to make sure I'm not hurting myself. And then from there, like if it's the first speed session you've ever done, I would start at what I call a level 1 speed session, which is literally just sets of 5 and just 3 sets. So that's only 15 balls, and you're giving yourself a minute break in between. And the goal of them is just to hit the ball as hard as you can. Maximum intent. That is a key word for me, the word intent. People don't take it to the level they're supposed to take it to. And that's why they never push through certain barriers. And that's why they won't see the true progression which speed training can bring. It's because they don't take themselves to that level. And forgetting where the ball's going is a key thing. And literally just, if you can, get rid of this screen and just have a ball speed number or a club speed number and only focus on them 2 things, do that. That is the ultimate way to train.
Interesting point. So let's clarify some stuff here. So we're talking specifically, we're not even talking about speed sticks, right? So you're actually talking about hitting a golf ball.
Let's go.
So we would go through our warm-up, and then if we were level 1s, we'd never done this stuff before, we're going to take 5 basically full swing drivers. Are these guys changing their setup at all? Are they changing the way they're hitting it at all? Are they teeing it higher? Are they trying to hit the ball further? Or are they simply trying to swing faster? Sure. What data are they after? Give them a little bit of detail to see how that session would look.
So you're going to start with finding your baseline, right? And a baseline is not going to move too far away from what you usually do, right? So yes, you are going to hit it as hard as you can. You're going to try to find your maximum number, but you're not going to start trying to loft it up. You're not going to start trying to change your angle of attack. You're not going to start trying to produce more ground reaction force. Those things may come at a later date if you're trying to find further miles per hour.
Yep.
But at this point, you're literally just using the word intent and you're just pushing it that way. At level 1, you don't need to go any further than that.
All right, so let's quickly see what that 5 ball session might look like. And we mentioned the word intent, and we're going to talk a little bit more about intent as the video goes on. But let's actually see what that intent looks like. I think sometimes people underestimate how
100%
intense this actually could be, right? So we're not even going to hit a driver, we're just going to hit an iron. Actually, that's a good point to say. You actually could do this with an iron as well. It doesn't actually have to be a driver.
Yeah, 100%.
Obviously, driver's ideal, but I've actually had times where I've hit driver range balls with my driver and cracked it. So if you're worried, you can do this with an iron. It's not ideal, but it can be done. Jack's going to demo with an iron because it's fun. So let's actually look at the intent that then happens and actually look at the consistency from ball to ball. I think is interesting, and the actual aggression that goes into this.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's hit one and let's see.
Okay.
Let's see the intent. What club you got here, Jack?
So I got 3 iron.
He's got 3 iron. Okay, so let's see the intent that can go into this.
So I'm not worried about the fact that that's hooking. That does not bother me.
So 0 attachment to ball flight at this point. If you're doing it here,
I'm looking in that top right corner. I'm looking. So I've got 156 ball speed. So I'm going to really push now for the next 4, trying to see how close I can get to 160.
Nice. So you notice that he's set a number in his mind. He saw the 156. Now he's thinking, right, now 160 is my next milestone. I'm going to get to that 160. And then what happens if we start to push that? Let's see what this one is.
So I don't think I quite hit that hard enough. I'm going to work a bit harder on the next one. So I got 158.
158.
Pushed
So
up, good.
Still pushing for that 160, but you can keep pushing, keep pushing. Notice breathing changes.
So not a very good shot.
You'll also notice that when Jack was standing there talking through his stuff, he seemed like a nice guy. Now he seems like his personality's changed a little bit. Become a little bit more aggressive, starting to breathe. Notice how he walks in again from the back of the ball. He's not just scraping and hitting, he's walking in with more intensity. A bit more purpose. Good. Again, he's just ignoring it. He doesn't care at this point. He's simply interested in how much aggression and how much speed you can generate through that golf
So
ball.
156. So I've got to push a lot harder.
I'm going to give you 2 more tries to get up to the 160. Go for it.
Gets that. Came up the hill. Doesn't matter. It's not going to reach up there. Club speed was good. I can guarantee that. So I would be looking at now, just doing the same thing. Hopefully make contact. Don't worry about it too much. Don't try and slow down to find contact. There you go. Something that's
Happy with that one? We'll see.
We'll see. There you go, 160.
So here's his 160. So then he would take that as a rest, take his minute break, go around again, and then the next one you're probably looking at trying to beat that number on the next round, right?
See if we can get to like 163 would be my mindset, right?
Perfect. Fine. So level 1, we've never done it before. We're just going to take 5 balls. We're going to hit 5 balls as hard as we possibly can. How many in a session? How many sets would that potentially be?
3 sets.
3 sets of 5. So this potentially could be done after a range session.
100%.
So
end
at
of
the
a
driving
range.
Yeah, perfect. At the end of the driving range, 5 balls, hard as you can. Take a minute rest. Do that 3 times round.
Definitely.
Level 1. So when can we move from level 1 to level 2? When are we ready to start ramping this up a little bit harder?
It can be player dependent, but I do tend to say after a couple of weeks we can start moving into level 2.
Okay.
So level 2 is basically just a higher quantity, right?
Yep.
So instead of sets of 5, I tend to move them into sets of 10. They tend to be a little bit more ready. The body's a little bit more prepared to be moving at those speeds. And that's where you start to see a little bit more gain, right? So you start to see it because the body starts to get, a little bit more work done. It's able to start producing more force for longer, which is a good thing as well. The body starts to remember exactly what it's doing. It's a good training process. And again, it just helps you push through those barriers a little bit more because you're going to pretty much, as long as you're using intent, you're going to push through the barriers straight away.
That's true. And I think we're just letting our body adjust to it as well. Like, again, if no one's ever done a speed training session, if they jump in straight away to a 30, 40-minute session, you're the pain after that session is going to be intense. Chances you're going to get 8. So even if you are accustomed to gym training, or if you're not accustomed to speed training, it is completely different, right? And I will take, I'll train regularly. If I've not done a speed session for a while and I just do one, I will leg the next day. So I think we're just trying to ramp that up slowly, similar to what we do with our strength training. Right. So how many stages are we going through here? I don't think we need to go to all the way to the nth degree here. So we're going from level 1, we're going to level 2. Is there then a level 3 that you potentially would take people to?
Yeah, a level 3 is probably a little bit advanced. There's plenty of golfers I coach who've gone on to level 3, and it's more of a progression stage. So you're trying to hit targets a little bit more. So it's not necessarily a ball number you're trying to hit. You tend to get a baseline number at the start of the session, whatever you are on that given day. Remember, that's going to be different depending on how your body's feeling in that day. So, for example, I'll give you a super, just so I can use it, 100 miles per hour at the start of the session. And we're going to try and build up 5% in the first set. So that would be moving up to 105 miles per hour. You then take a break in between, try to get some fuel on, get going. It's very much like a gym session. It's no different. And then you're going to try to improve by another 2% on the session on the set after, and then you have a final session where you try to have a bit of fun, trying to break some PBs, trying to smash through your goals, and just try to take it as far as you possibly can. Perhaps set a timer, create some sort of limit, get the blood flowing, get the mind racing a little bit. That sort of stuff where it increases adrenaline is super important to help you really progress and push through some barriers.
What we'll do maybe is I'll write this out and I'll put this down either in the description or I'll put a downloadable here so you guys can actually see this plan and what it would actually look like session by session. So we've not spoken yet about what type of data they want to take from these sessions, right? So you've just run a session here. I sat into that session. It was very much focused on ball speed as the number. So what type of numbers do you start to look at when you're doing your own speed training or taking a client through speed training? How interested are you in clubhead speed? How interested are you in ball speed? What's your opinion then on optimizing launch and spin? At what point do we start to consider those things? What type of numbers do we look at? Because I don't think everyone has access to these numbers all the time as well. So it's obviously going to be player dependent on what they have access to. What, in your opinion, is the bare minimum to have access to, and what would be, optimal, and what numbers are you looking at? And does that change as you go through levels as well?
Yeah, it does. To be honest, data is great, right? We want data. Data is what helps us process what we're doing and see if we're doing it correctly. Not everyone has access to, foresight and some great facilities like TrackMan and, being able to get the clubhead speed and the ball speed numbers, which are 2 essential numbers I'm looking at. But you can buy things, for example, like a speed radar, which is much lesser than buying yourself a quad or a TrackMan or something like that. this is a lot cheaper method. It does only measure swing speed. It does give ball speed number. Probably wouldn't rely on that too much, but the club speed number is really good on here, and most importantly, it's a really good way of tracking progress.
It's true. And how would we then ramp that up as we go through the stages? So I'm assuming level 1, as I've brought in, level 1, ball speed, if you can get it, is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Clubhead speed is going to be kind of second best to that. If you can get some kind of number to see how you're progressing, that's going to be great. When would you then start looking at actual ball flight? And at what point would you start considering accuracy, dispersion, distance? At what point does that come in?
To be honest, it's always thought about for myself as a coach. I'm always thinking about that sort of stuff. If I'm watching someone partake in a speed session, I'm always wondering, what feel could produce a straighter ball flight, what could lower the spin. We're always looking at things like equipment. As you get quicker, certain equipment may change. That's super important to know. But technique-wise, you're always trying to improve as you're going. I find that's an easier way of doing it as opposed to waiting till the end, right? So we're looking at optimizing our spin rate as a super important one. Our launch angles are a super important one. I feel like if you get those two, ball speed, club speed, they're super related to each other. If you manage them 4 numbers, you're usually not too far away of optimizing launch and distance. In terms of accuracy, that to be honest, it's not as big a discrepancy as you get up speed as people might think. Obviously, you will generally hit it a little bit wider the longer you are. That doesn't change. That's not because you're suddenly swinging out your boots. That's just because your triangle, as you get longer, gets wider, right? That's just a simple fact. That's what's going to happen. 1 degree at 300 yards is wider than 1 degree at 100 yards, right?
For sure. So, and I think it's quite important that we didn't, I don't want to diverge on this video to start talking about technique and distance. This is very much for speed training.
It's separated.
It's very key that if you are going to do speed training, you need to accept that in that speed training session, you are going to hit a few weird shots, right? Earlier we hit some terrible golf. It's just the way it is. But you almost need to detach that away from what would you. We hope still be some good consistent practice that's going on, right? And that's when you're worrying a little bit more about strike and ball flight and different stuff. So definitely just talking, swing speed alone, there needs to be a little bit of letting go. Definitely is the key there.
I agree.
Nice. So let's recap a little bit. So level 1, we're definitely talking here about people that have never done speed training before. So we're talking 3 sets of 5, swinging as hard as you can without making too many moves away from your current golf swing. Just trying to make your golf swing a little bit faster. And if you find some moves in there and feels that make it go faster, not the end of the world, but we're not trying to just move too far away. Once we feel comfortable with that, within a couple of weeks, we can move to stage 2 or level 2, where we move that up to 10 balls. And we, again, same feelings there. We're just trying to work within our own move and make that move faster. And then eventually we can start to take things to stage 3, where that gets a little bit more advanced. So we'll start to map that out underneath here as well. Anything you think we haven't covered in terms of speed training? Because we've, without just brushing straight past it, we've ignored speed sticks completely. Which is maybe a topic for another day. And we've moved literally onto what you can do with a golf club in your hand and a ball at your feet and actually hitting golf shots, right? Which I think is actually, in my opinion, the best way of doing speed training.
It's a great skill.
And I just think it's the fastest way to transfer this over onto the golf course, right?
100%.
So I think that's quite key to get across. And obviously just increasing your engine in the gym is going to help you with this stuff as well.
All helps, right? All helps.
Nice. Anything you think we missed?
I can't push it enough. Intent. I'm just going to keep pushing that word intent, and just honestly just push that into your brain and forgetting the outcome. Those 2 things, if I could leave it on something, that would be what I'd
for sure. Guys, any questions you've got, stick them below. Me and Jack will get them answered. Jack's going to be coming on loads more videos. We've got loads of stuff that's going to happen coming on the channel with Jack. So I'm really excited for that. And Jack, thanks so much for your time again.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
See you in the next video.